Good morning. My name is Blair. I live in Zone 8B, which is in Central Texas, or my version of Zone 8B is in Central Texas. There are Zone 8Bs in Portland, Oregon, which are completely different. The zone is just about kind of how cold it gets in the winter. So here in Zone 8B, it freezes a little bit. The last couple of years have been a lot harder freeze, and so that's been confusing everyone. But basically, Texas is very different from other Zone 8s or Zone 8Bs. We get very, very hot in the summer. We can be very dry. And it's really that heat in the summer. I mean, there have been summers where we've had 100 degrees for over 100 days, and that is just really hard on some vegetables and great for others. Okra does really well here, for instance. I don't like okra, but but I would highly recommend growing it if you want to. And there will be things that are excluded from my video today. We're going to talk about seeds versus starts, specifically for Texas, and I'm going to specifically focus on beginning gardeners, though I'll throw in a little bit for some intermediates. And by beginning gardener, I mean we have just built our first bed, thrown a couple of bags of soil in it, and now we're trying to figure out what to grow. But I'll go through the different kinds of seeds that I have purchased over the years, and also which ones I would definitely not buy from starts in the store, and then the ones where it kind of depends. Sometimes you need a little instant gratification when you're gardening, and patience can be really hard with your first garden, that I would say I'm kind of in the middle on. There's a few I'd say you have to buy from starts, or I mean, you can start them yourself, but I would not recommend that to a beginning gardener. The amount of patience to wait for the plant to go from a start to a fruiting plant is enough. We don't need to then add on seed starting to the whole thing. All right, so let's get started. I think I'll start with the ones that I would absolutely buy from starts. At least this is me. And this is going to be absolutely, oh, actually, let me show you something cool. I got this as a gift a few years ago, and this is an excellent way to store seeds once you get to this point in your life. I think this was originally a scrapbook. Like, you can store all the parts for scrapbooks in here, but it's excellent for seed storage. They just keep it in a cool, dark place. It is see-through, so you don't want to go stick it on a kitchen window or something like that. But I just store it in a closet in our house that's cool and dark and always has the AC on, because Texas, definitely don't store this in your shed or your greenhouse or anything like that. But it's really cool because it's got all these different little pieces. I keep a couple, and I probably won't do this for too long, but these are just, the seeds I'm currently planting in theory. That kind of falls behind. These are, this is for seed saving. And I'll kind of organize it based on which time of year I'm going to do the planting. But you'll notice all the seeds are gone out of it because I have them stacked over here in different piles. So I would say the first definite buy from starts, and you'll find these everywhere in Texas, are peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants. Are one of those that you really want that 6-week start, especially in Texas. You would think, we've got this huge long growing season, it doesn't really matter when I get something in the ground, but it does, because about mid-July, it gets so hot here, peppers are really going to struggle. Eggplants, if they're not well established, will even struggle. Tomato plants will absolutely struggle. I get a lot of diseases and pest pressure when it gets so hot the plant is in distress. So, for instance, the thing with tomatoes is, for me at least, is spider mites. It's dry enough here, the spider mites kind of take over, and they destroy the plant. And in a few weeks or a month, from August, or from late July to mid-August, the plant is just looks terrible. And either I cut it way back to the ground and let it grow again from the bottom, or if the spider mites are bad enough, I pull it out and put in new starts. Actually, I'll start seeds in the middle of the summer just for this situation. Peppers, they actually would prefer a nice California day. Lows of 60, high of 80. That would be their preference. But eggplants really do like the heat here. So if you like eggplant, or rather if you've never tried it and you thought, oh, maybe I could try it. It tastes completely different than the one from the store. It's not bitter at all if you pick it at the right time. Hopefully I'll get eggplants this year, and I'll do a video on when to pick an eggplant. But they just really do well here. And anyway, that's oh, and with tomatoes, there's kind of a couple different varieties. Because I have such bad squirrel pressure, I typically just do a couple of early girls that are earlier in the season, because the squirrels seem to get a little more desperate when it gets hot in the summer. There's fewer shoots and berries and things, I guess, around. But so I do cherry tomatoes because, one, they produce a lot. Kids love them. My daughter loves picking them off the plant. I've kind of, when she was 2, she struggled to figure out which ones were the right ones to pick. And so I'd be like, pick that one, pick that red one, versus she'd grab the green one off the plant, and I'd kind of stop her before she got it to her mouth. Not because it would hurt her, but because, kids, somebody tells them it's a tomato and it tastes funny that one time and they don't ever want to try it again. So I just tried to make sure when she was really little that she grabbed the ripe one off the plant. As she's become older, I would say even last summer, she was 3, she was able to really figure out which ones were the right ones, or she'd get one that was maybe not perfectly ripe, but she would just still sit there and eat them. I had to pick them off the plant, actually, not because she couldn't figure out which ones, but because she couldn't get them off the plant fast enough to be happy with the number of tomatoes that she had. So that's a good problem to have. Especially, I had these little tiny ones. They were like very small. Okay, so those are those 2. Another one, so this is a broad category, brassicas. This one, I would say it's harder to plant in the ground, just the patience required. I've done it before, but I would say, especially if you're a beginning gardener, these are plants I actually plant in the fall and kind of let them go over winter, and then I'll get a nice crop, a nice spring crop. But brassicas would include cauliflower, which I actually did last year, and it was really nice. I was really worried about having to blanch it, which is like wrapping the leaves around it so it doesn't turn yellow, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't really blanch it, and it still turned out great, except for the stuff that got killed in the freeze. But cauliflower, broccoli, broccolini, kale is considered a brassica. Brussels sprouts, that's another one. I'd kind of go 50-50. I think I've planted it in the ground before. It is one of those ones that's going to overwinter, so I'm not really looking at the garden every day from October to January, and so I may not notice that it hasn't really taken off. Versus in the summer, I'm like, okay, where are my carrots? Where are my carrots? Where are my carrots? So I think that some of the ones over the winter you may have a little more patience with. Another one that does need to get planted. Actually, let me do. Okay, there's some that are a toss-up, and there's a lot of them actually that are a toss-up. And some of these I might actually go and buy, depending on how much space you have, 1 or 2 starts, and then start some seeds in the ground and just see if you can keep the water moist. If you have, if you're going to plant seeds, dedicate a week or 2, depending on germination rate. Carrots take 2 weeks to germinate. Thing like a radish will take 3 days. Something like herbs or something else may take up to 7 days. So if you've got a week where things are relatively calm, or you can at least remember to go out and water, or you can if you've set up an automated watering system, there's a variety of kinds. We have ours linked into the sprinkler, but there's some where you can put a timer on a hose, and you can have it set to spray the soil once a day for a week. Not a heavy spray, just like a light spray to get the soil wet. You do want to check on it. You want to make sure it's not over watering, because the seeds will rot. So, there's a Goldilocks thing here, but seeds are not as easy, but there are certain things that I would, and I will get to this, that I absolutely would not grow from seed. There are things that are kind of in the middle. Salad greens are one of those that are in the middle. I think it's fun to buy the starts, especially when you're first starting out. You may have I think I planted mine in the ground in February, my lettuce this year, and I wouldn't wait too much later than that. It'll grow in, a lot of these say 60 days. Romaine lettuce, botanical interests. Go to Central Market if you live in Austin. They have all the seeds, or one of the nurseries. I wouldn't go to Home Depot or Lowe's for plant starts, by the way. because they overcharge. They're like $6 a piece, and you can get very expensive very fast. And they actually sell too big of plants. I think they do it because they know they can sell it for $6 and it's the same plant, a little bit more soil. It's a better bang for the buck for them. But and I don't have any right around me, but the little trays, I think they're 3-inch. I don't know. Anyway, they're the ones that they'll sell at the nurseries. They're the little black or white little square boxes. That's actually the right size to plant a tomato or a pepper, because if you get it too established and it has like fruit on it and then you plant it in the ground, it's actually going to go into shock. And so you don't want to buy those really big plants and more instant gratification, because I've already got a tomato, I've already got a blueberry, I've already got a whatever. But you're not going to get as much fruit. You're not going to get as much vegetable or whatever you want. And anyway, so these guys, you can plant them, you can get them from the store, and actually sometimes they'll have seeded multiple ones in there, and there's lots of little plants, and you can actually, if you're feeling brave, pull the plant out, and I'll show a video sometime doing this, but you can actually pull the little plants apart, just very carefully tease the roots apart, and you can plant multiple plants that way. So that's a good bang for your buck if you're buying from starts. But I would throw a couple of these in the ground. I mean, a good romaine lettuce or something pretty basic. If you can remember to water it for, let's see, seed germination is 5 to 7 days, or 5 to 10 days. So I would say like about, if you can water it for a week, you're probably going to be okay here. And the more regularly you water it, the quicker they're going to come up in that germination period. If it's the right weather in Texas, I mean, if it's 20 degrees out, that's less helpful. Let me actually take a few of these out. Oh, celery though, I would kind of put that in the lettuce category. Celery, if you're a beginning gardener, I would get a start. And celery is actually really fun to grow. If you don't eat a lot of celery, my daughter actually would eat the stalks, and they're pretty, green tasting, more green tasting than the kind of watery ones you get from the store. And she liked them, and that was kind of a surprise to me. But waiting for them to grow from seed is a lot of patience that I definitely think as a new gardener I certainly wouldn't have had. And when I tried celery for the first time, I did get a start. I kind of tucked it in behind some other plants. I definitely put it in a shadier spot. Like I tucked it behind some, I think, eggplants or peppers that kind of crowded over it, which was actually great in the summer, and it survived the summer. And I was able to go out and just grab 1 or 2 stalks when I needed it for a recipe versus having to go buy a big thing of, honestly, not that strong in flavor celery from the store. And it was really cool. That's a fun one, and I think kids actually do like celery if you give it to them. If you have a squirrel problem, definitely cover the place you put the seeds, because there's nothing more frustrating than you finally get this little sprout that's coming out of the ground, yay, and then a squirrel digs it up to plant its nut. That is so frustrating. You can either do actual row covers, or if your garden is a little bit smaller, you can do they're like dinner plate covers is what they would call them. They're like a mesh dinner plate cover for, say you're sitting outside and there's lots of flies. It's like a food cover. That actually works great. I got like an 8-pack one year, and I put that over all of my strawberry plants to keep the squirrels out. That worked really well. And then later realized, I could stick a new planted, very small seedling that I don't want a squirrel to accidentally dig up. This is a 50-50 for me. Melons. There's not a lot of variety. If you go into a store, you can basically get Hill's Best cantaloupe. And I think I got an Israeli Galia melon this year, but then a bug just beheaded it. So I'm starting actually from seed. And this is melons, meaning watermelon, and like cantaloupes, or what I actually like to grow are personal size melons. They're about this big. And the nice thing about them is you don't wait for this big cantaloupe and then a squirrel takes one bite out of it right before it's ripe. It never ripens. It rots on the vine, or the squirrel gets the rest. That can be frustrating with the smaller melons. I noticed, especially later in the season, the squirrels kind of left them alone, and I actually got some, which was nice. And I'm also trying sugar. And the other nice thing about those smaller melons is you can grow them up a trellis, which will save you some space in your garden, and that will allow it to grow even though it's 5-6 feet in the air. So melons are an iffy to me. I ended up planting a whole bunch of seeds this year because the one plant I impulse bought at the store got beheaded. So I planted a bunch of seeds in hopes that one of them will survive the whatever creature is beheading my plants right now. Okay, so that's melons. Squash. Okay, I'm 50-50 on this as well. The main reason is vine borers in Texas. So vine borers are these really pesky beetles. They're a flying beetle, I think is what they are. Or flying wasp. I think it's a beetle. I think it's a beetle, but it kind of looks like a wasp. Anyway, it's this little bug. It has red or orange on it. And I mean, I'll recognize them when I see them in the summer. They make me so mad. But basically, they will lay seeds or lay eggs on the stem of your plant. And then as soon as that little egg hatches, the little baby larva drills into the hollow center of your plant and then eats it from the inside out. So no birds are going to pull them off because they're inside the plant. It's hard for you to see them and pick them off like you can caterpillars, and you won't realize how much damage they've done until it's a lot of damage. So they're very frustrating, but and so they come usually, I want to say they come in May, and then they come again in like July or something like that. So even if you succession sow, they'll have a bunch of them come through, wipe out your plants. You can succession sow, but don't worry, they're going to come back. They come back in September too. They're just year round here, basically. I think we're breeding them or something with all the gardeners around here. But back to why you get the starts, you can get the plant going faster, and you're more likely to get fruit if you can get there before May. If you can get the fruit kind of producing before May, before those guys show up, you're more likely to get fruit. So anyway, that's squash. Another one that I'm 50-50 on, I think for a beginning gardener, I would probably, this is herbs. Just realizing this is probably completely backwards in the camera. Anyway, not sure. Can't remember when the marrying happens. Anyway, I would buy most of these from start. Again, just to get you started. You'll be able to, if nothing else, you'll be able to pull, some of whatever it is that you wanted off really early. I'll do a video on which herbs that I plant. But the one I would say you can start from seed if you've got some extra space is basil. And I would just spray it, or spread the seeds out liberally. I plant a bunch. It's okay if you it's called multi-sowing when you put lots of plants next to each other. Basil actually likes that. You can put lots of seeds in one place and basil will be very happy. And you want lots of basil. If you're going to do basil, you're going to do, a little piece on top of a pasta or a dish, or maybe throw some in. And then there's the other side of it where you can make pesto. You can do basil lemonade. You can do all kinds of fun things with basil. I personally, in Texas, basil grows so well. I would say grow a ton of basil. Why not? If nothing else, you can give it away to your neighbors, and they will either appreciate it or think you're crazy. We get both around here. All right. Here's some that I would absolutely not buy a start. If somebody is selling you a bean start, it's a scam. They are so easy to germinate, and it's just, especially a pole bean or a snap pea or something like that. They do so much better. They do not like their roots disturbed. It's just better to plant the bean. So if you're going to plant, these are pole beans. Make sure to look for the variety. It says bean pole, or it'll say bean bush. Bush are the ones that get, and then there's semi-bush, which is a whole different thing. But bush will get about this high, kind of depending, and they'll produce all at once. Poles will get, what does this say? It'll get, plants climb 6 to 8 feet. And the cool thing actually is all these different plants have different colored flowers, and so they're actually really pretty if they're growing up something. So, but beans I would absolutely not buy from starts. They're disturbing the roots when you put them in. You're just not going to get very many beans off of them. And these I would also succession sow. So succession sow, especially with the bush beans, they all produce at once. And so you would plant a couple of beans, and then 2 weeks later you plant a couple of beans. And you do have to wait until it's warm out. These guys will not germinate if it's less than 50 degrees, I would imagine, about that at night. They just don't like cold weather. They're actually a tropical plant, beans are. So that's beans. Definitely don't buy this from the store. Okay, root veggies. This covers a pretty wide variety, but in general, don't buy root veggies as starts. They are, some of them are really easy to grow from home. Some of them are a little more challenging. I'll do a video on that at some point. But root veggies do not like their roots disturbed. And if you're buying like one planted radish, it's literally, that is the only thing you're going to get is that one root out of it. And so you don't want to buy one radish and pay $1.99 or whatever the price is for it. You're going to get one radish. It's not like it's going to produce multiple radishes. I like to plant, so in the category of root veggies are, well, potatoes. You definitely wouldn't buy a potato already started. You just plant the potato in the ground. You want to plant seed potatoes, and they'll already have them kind of ready to go and everything. Let's see. Carrots. Oh, a really good one for early gardeners and kids especially is radishes. My daughter surprisingly likes radishes, and especially when she was really little, like when she was 2 or 3, she got really excited about them. She would just eat them, which was, again, surprising to me. But carrots are a little bit harder to start. Radishes are really easy because they only take 30 days. So if you've got some fresh soil, you're waiting for the carrots to come up. So carrots can take up to 14 days to germinate. The radishes will already be up and ready to go. And by the time your carrots are showing like a little sprout, the radishes will be ready to harvest. So you can actually plant radishes where you're planting other things and just kind of grow them in between the other seeds and just make sure it's far enough away that when you pull up the radish, it's not going to pull up the other seedling. But you can plant like between rows of carrots, whatever the spacing recommendation is for the carrots, you can plant rows of radishes and you get that instant gratification. The radishes will be ready in 30 to 40 days, like totally ready to pull out of the ground. You do want to plant either just enough to try for snacking or enough to have a meal. And the thing to do with radishes, if you end up planting a lot and you're successful, is you go, what the heck do I do with these radishes? I could shave a couple and put them on a salad, but radishes are really strong and spicy if you don't like that flavor. Roast them. That was the best advice I got from, I think it was Jess at Roots and Refuse Farm. Radishes actually, they lose a lot of that strong spicy flavor, and they taste really good once they're roasted. So that's it. Root vegetables. Oh, what I did try this year that I planted in, I want to say it was like early February, was, oh, not this guy. This guy, kohlrabi, and this is cool. I've shown it in another video. It looks like this. It's this purple, really cool plant. I could probably pull one out of the ground over there, but this one I roasted and it tastes amazing. I can't even describe the flavor. It's so unique. But this is a cool one that you can grow. You can stick in the ground early, and then I'm pulling it out right now as I'm planting the peppers and the tomatoes in its place. So it's one of those ones you can grow early and then kind of kick it out of the garden, which is great. It's 50 to 69 days. And I would say there's been a variety in there of how long it's actually taken to grow. This one I'm actually 50-50 on. You can buy a kale start or not. I bought some starts this year. They got me started on kale, and now I love kale. Definitely not something I don't like it at the store, and I definitely don't like that real leafy one. But this kale, red Russian kale, I think this is the one I have in my garden, and it's lovely. It's really sweet, actually. I'll put it in like a salad with Caesar dressing and some fruit, and it tastes amazing. And I'm not a person that likes lettuce. I actually think I like this more than lettuce because it has more flavor. But anyway, okay, so here's another one. This one I'm a little up in the air on. I think it's probably okay if you buy a start, but it's so easy to grow from seed, especially in Texas, that cucumber is one that I would recommend growing from seed. You just throw a couple in the ground. You do want to have a trellis nearby so it can grow up the trellis. I'm going to throw a couple of these in the ground. So cucumbers are really interesting. And the cool thing about cucumbers, I'm not going to go through all of my varieties, but they're not as boring as you might think. There's pickling cucumbers, which most people start with. If you like pickles, that's a great way to go. But there's like these like white cucumbers. I haven't tried these yet. I got them for free at the store last year. I've heard these are great Armenian cucumbers. I think they're actually a lot more like a melon. People really like these. They're called cucamelons. They're these little tiny, they're also called sour gherkins. These are just like a normal pickling cucumber. I don't know if you can even see that, but probably not. It's probably not in focus, sorry. Cucamelon. Oh, but this was my favorite. It's called a little potato cucumber, and it looks like a little kiwi, and the flavor was real sweet and mild. You just kind of shave off the outside, and I really liked it. My daughter really liked it, and they were cute and little, and they seemed to produce really well, and they were small enough that something didn't get them before we got them, and I was picking them all summer last year. Actually, that reminds me, I should probably plant these, but I've not. Oh my gosh, I just realized my video's been crooked. Oh well. Anyway, those are the seeds. I mean, the biggest ones that it's kind of a scam to buy from the store: root vegetables, beans, sugar snap peas, anything like that. You shouldn't be buying them from the store. Those you should plant in the ground. They're just not going to do very well otherwise. And then I'm probably more on the fence than a lot of other folks, especially if you're a beginning gardener. I want you to be successful. I want you to have a little bit of that instant gratification, because if you don't, you're less likely to get into gardening. And that's my goal here, is to show you it can be done. And so starting with a few of the starts, especially if you only got a 4x2 bed or something like that, get some starts, get some instant gratification. If you're starting right now in April, gosh, what would I plant now? Tomatoes. If you've got a little bit of shade on the garden, peppers, or you can get a shade cloth. If you like eggplant, I mean, I wouldn't go crazy with things you're not sure about in a really small garden like that, because the goal is to have things that you'll eat. Maybe a couple of beans, some herbs for sure. I mean, just throw a basil plant, or not a rosemary plant, because those get really big and they're perennial. But actually, I'll do a whole nother one on herbs, because plant basil. That's the one I can say you're probably safe to plant. A lot of herbs are actually kind of invasive and they'll take over your garden. So plant some tomatoes, plant some basil. If you don't like tomatoes, maybe plant some green beans. Maybe try out a squash plant, though with the vine borers, it can be a little dicey. If you like kale, definitely plant kale. It's surprisingly amazing. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. I had a lot of fun talking about seeds and things that I plant. This is really honestly why I started this channel, was just to talk about plants. So I stopped bothering my friends with all of my plant talk. And also just to share that, it is doable to garden in Texas. And there's going to be some things that are a little bit of a challenge, but you can do it. You got this, and I highly recommend trying. Until you try, you don't know, and I bet you can do it. All right, awesome. Have a great day.